Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode, and this is the symposium in between HCI uh, and World Talent Economic Forums, and we do focus on climate actions and innovations. We have our world famous speaker, Dr. Soumitra, Leslie, Dr. Brian, and Rituraj. And this program heavily promoted through Port TV USA, Good News USA, Pacific Rim Business Council, which has around 100,000 entrepreneurs around the world, uh, as well as B Lab Japan. So hopefully through this discussion, the policymakers of Bangladesh can understand how to take action for climate change, how to take different kind of initiative for climate change, and definitely with our collaborations we can help the local communities to build up their ecosystem, go for capacity buildings, and definitely go for policy development. Already JICA closely working with World Talent Economic Forum for enhancing the capacity, developing the technology. So we have our all of the expertise. So if you have any question, you directly can ask questions. So before I go to the discussions, I just want to share one of my book, and already we are doing some research and identify some challenging issues from Bangladesh. And Bangladesh is a very small country. It's beside India, but we have our expert, those who are doing research on Himalayas and all of the things. So that's why I'm sharing these things with our expert. Basically, this book, I call it Silk Route 3.0. If you see this plan and these natural beauties of India and Bangladesh and Bay of Bengals, we have Himalayas, and then we have our Ganga. From Ganga, it's come to as a Podda in Bangladesh. You know, World Talent Economic Forum, we are supporting around this 23% of the populations of Bangladesh through this Podda, and then it's go for Bay of Bengals. So we call it Silk Route 3.0, where the global populations, 1/10 of the global populations actually in this region, this Himalaya, this Ganga, this Podda, and this Bay of Bengals, it's around 600 million people. And this is the $1 trillion economy, and we are heavily affected by this climate change and all of the things. So today we will understand how this community can get support by the global north, as well as how we can work together. And definitely this is not only a symposium, I want to say this is also political discussions also, because in our regional peace, definitely in between India and Bangladesh is very important, and it's depend on this Himalaya, Ganga, Podda, and Bay of Bengal. So hopefully today's discussions will be very interesting, very meaningful, and already we share with these things with our climate ministry, our planning ministry, our prime minister office, like chief advisor office, and those who are planning for this mega projects for urban planning and so on. Hopefully, through this dialogue, through this symposium, we can understand what's going on and what is the solution for us. So in that situations, I want to give floor Dr. Soumitra.
Hello, thank you for the introduction. It's so wonderful to meet you, all of you, and the esteemed speakers here. And we are looking forward to a great collaboration with World Talent Economic Forum. And with that note, I will give it to our first speaker, Ritraj Fukan.
Dr. Soumitra, Rituraj. Oh, okay.
Ritraj, yep. Um, we cannot hear you, Raj, if you're speaking. Maybe you're mute.
Can you unmute, Mr. Rituraj? Just unmute yourself. I cannot unmute because you are.
You,
Can you unmute yourself, please?
you see at the bottom, there is a
Dr. Shomitra, you want to take the lead by this time after finishing your presentation, maybe, Mr. Rituraj.
I can do that. Do you want to need is a different microphone?
It's on YouTube for him, I think.
You need to.
Dr. Shomitra, as it is a go live for media, I think you can take the lead, and after
Okay.
you, yes,
Let,
Rituraj can come because our audience are waiting.
okay. Let me do that. Okay. Hi everyone. This is Soumitra Das, and my topic is making. Hold on a second. Okay, I'm there. Can you see me? Am I?
Yes,
So
we
my
can see
topic
you.
is making a case for climate intervention or climate cooling. The topic I'm going to talk over what is climate interventions, what is the science behind intervention, why is it necessary, and I'll give you some of the examples, cooling examples, or cooling solution examples. We all know the focus would be for because Bangladesh, we are having three is major issues I can think about. Definitely Bangladesh. The same with India as well. One is extreme heat situation. Another is extreme flooding situation. Those are the two top things I'm going to touch. And then we will see what kind of solutions we can offer. Now, because of the extreme heat, we also see that cyclone and other things, extreme weather that persist in those areas. So before I get into any of those, we talk about what approaches we do have for climate change. We have three approaches. One is the climate, carbon reduction, carbon dioxide reduction. So we all know carbon dioxide is the main climate for climate change. We don't need any further discussion about that. Every year now we are putting about 42 gigatons of carbon dioxide, and this carbon dioxide is can absorb heat, and that's why we are getting this hotter temperature, the global warming. So definitely one thing is that we need to stop putting carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So that part is the reduction. We sometimes call mitigation. We call the reduction of emissions. So we need to move to solar, wind, from fossil fuels to renewable energy. So that part is one part we are focusing on. That is the existing most of the countries are focusing on. Then the second part is the removal of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide, once it is in the atmosphere, stays in for about 1,000 years. Now that means that whatever carbon dioxide released 200 years ago still there in the atmosphere. And if I in terms of concentration, it is about today is about 420 parts per kilometer, parts per million, 420 or 25 ppm now. Throughout this last, 3 million years, it stayed below 280 million parts per million, 280 or 300 ppm. So we have increased last 200 years about 50% more. So we need to remove some of it to make it, the blanket that exactly we need. Now the blanket is much thicker and making it warmer. That is another one part of geoengineering we do. And the third piece that what we are going to focus on, that is the reflection method. And this is the part of the talk I'm going to focus on. And this is one we are talking about climate intervention, sometimes called solar geoengineering, where you can reflect some parts of a tiny fraction of lights very quickly, rapidly cool the atmosphere. Before we get into the solution, let us look into what is causing this extreme weather, what is causing this global warming. And the matter is very simple. It's not very difficult to understand. One way we think about carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it is increasing and causing temperature to increase because it can absorb heat. On the other side, if you think about that energy source, energy imbalance point of view, that solar energy from the sun is coming and it should get reflected. If the incoming energy, which is solar energy, and the outgoing energy, the thermal radiation energy, if they both become equal, then the temperature will remain stable. And when one gets higher, incoming energy is getting higher, then there is a Earth's energy imbalance we see. So in today's term, and people have measured it, that we are getting the energy imbalance is about 1 watt per meter square. Now it sounds a little bit small, 1 watt, but when you think about the Earth's surface, that energy imbalance is about 700K, when 700,000 or almost like a million Hiroshima atom bombs exploding every 24 hours. Just think about the damage it can cause if we explode every day about 1 million Hiroshima-sized bombs, atom bombs. So this imbalance, if you can see that incoming energy in the black and absorb solar radiation and is in the red, the difference is increasing. In 2001 to 2004, it's almost 1.2, 2.3 watt per meter square. In fact, it's been increased in the last year also, 2025. We have only data from 2025. So that's a big concern. And the impact that we see in terms of global temperature, at the same time, the temperature you see starting from 1970, and the average temperature was 0.3, meaning 0.3 above the pre-industrial level, 0.3 degrees Celsius. And 2024, it is 1.6 degrees Celsius. It has been increasing steadily. Although 2025, it is 1.48, I think. We don't have the data here because of the La Nina effect. But in general, it has been increasing. So what do we see? So because of this energy imbalance, the temperature is rising. And we have data that The projection is that right now it's 1.46 degrees Celsius for 2025, but the rate is increasing 0.43 on average per degree Celsius per decade. And that means if you calculate that, that gets you to about 2 degrees Celsius, about 12 years from now, and crossing 2.5 degrees Celsius by 2050. Think about that our Paris climate agreement, which was 1.5 degrees Celsius, that the one they were targeted was 1.5 degrees Celsius. Now we are crossing 1.5 degrees Celsius and going towards 3 degrees Celsius. In fact, last year, German Meteorological Society and German Society of Physics, they estimate, they projected, they warned us that if we go in the same direction the way we are going, as business as usual, then by 2050, the temperature, global temperature, global warming can go beyond 3 degrees Celsius. What does it mean for Bangladesh or India? See, temperature and humidity, they can be very deadly. And something called wet bulb temperature, you may be aware of it, that when the temperature, thermometer temperature, when 100 degree, 100% humidity, the temperature it reads is called the wet bulb temperature. Now, at 3 degrees Celsius, 1.5 degrees Celsius, sorry, not this one, this one. So you can see the number of hours increased from 1.5 degrees Celsius global warming to 4 degrees Celsius. And the unbearable temperature, what is the unbearable temperature? 35 degrees Celsius wet bulb temperature is the maximum we can tolerate. Beyond that, even a healthy person can die in a few hours because our body cannot sweat and internal temperature start going very high and start failing. So if you think about Delhi and Kolkata, both of them are side by side, you can see we are going toward 3 degrees Celsius. And if you go into 3 degrees Celsius, not the 4 degrees Celsius I'm talking about, 2 degrees or 3 degrees Celsius, we'll have about 20 hours, Bangladesh and Kolkata, additional, those number per year, that kind of situation where the temperature will be unbearable. Now think about this, that most of those South Asian countries, even Asian countries, even in India, you'll see that the people, most of the places don't have air conditioning. And in that temperature, with that humidity, it will be very difficult for people to go to school. Most of the schools do not have air conditioning. And the people to work outside, to think about from the student perspective, education perspective, those people who do not have the privilege of having air conditioning at home, at the schools, how they are going to do their studies. On the other hand, about 70% or 80% people who do their living outside the physical labor condition, how are they going to work in those temperatures, and what that means to the economic output. This is a very scary thing that, as the temperature goes up, what happens? And the current condition, you see that those black spots in the map are currently unlivable condition, meaning temperature is so high with humidity, I mean, those are the areas where the wet bulb temperature has exceeded the human survivability limit, which is 35 degrees Celsius. But in 2070, people have estimated, you can see that the area of India, Bangladesh area, a lot of part are looks like going to be unlivable because of the temperature it be so high. So as the temperature increases, what happens? It gets moisture up in the sky, in the atmosphere, and that makes it what? The hydrological cycle. So you get more evaporation, more precipitation, so you get more rain. In fact, per degree temperature increase, you have 7% more moisture in the air. So as this more moisture in the air, it can hold 7% more water vapor, then you're getting more rain. As you get more rain, what would happen? Your rivers are going to flood. So you are going to get a lot more flooding. Your Padma or Padma or Ganga that Sharif was talking about will have more flooding because that amount of water cannot be held in that narrow channel. So that is you can see why you are getting the floods. One reason, it's not sudden outpour of rain you are going to getting these days, and then for a while you don't get this rain. This is part of the climate change. On the other side, as the temperature is increasing, you are seeing that glacier, Himalayan glacier, which is the, called third pole, third largest deposit of water or ice after those two poles. So they are melting. As they are melting, you're getting more water in your river that cannot be held. They cannot hold that amount of water. So you are seeing flooding in that area. And as it is getting flooded, I mean, every year we see flooding, so more rain, heavy rain, sudden output. And then you are getting also water melted from the Himalayan, more than that used to be. Both conditions are getting you a lot of flooding. But on the other hand, what is happening in the Himalayan, especially in the mountain level, as the glaciers are retreating, getting melted, the access to water is getting less. And in the future, when the glaciers will be melted, as in the eastern part of Himalayas, particularly, that is more important for Bangladesh, Assam, in those areas, that will be ice-free by 2050. Most of it will be ice-free. Then what will happen to the drinking water, the river flow, hydroelectric power that depends on those, the water, that will be gone. So it will impact all those things, your water availability, agriculture, hydel power, transport, all of these things. So, and that's not too far from today. So as the water going down, Himalayan and the other uh, glaciers around the world, sea level is rising, and that makes the coastal part. We live in the coastal, a lot of rivers, and also Bay of Bengal in Indian case, Arabic Ocean and the Indian Ocean, 3 areas. Those areas risk getting inundated and to some extent unlivable. So we are seeing that it's already happening. I have read in some newspaper that almost every year thousands of refugees are coming to Dhaka and getting lots of people that Dhaka can handle because of the population density is getting so high in Dhaka and coming out from the coastal regions. They cannot live in those areas. So what, how we are doing? I mean, we are, sometimes called the frogs in the boiling water. It's slowly happening that we don't understand. At some point, it will add up. At some point, it will be so hot that it will be very difficult to solve this. And so we need to act today. So how do we solve this problem? And now getting into this question, there are two, definitely permanent solution. We need to do this Paris Climate Agreement that we have decided to do, that in net zero emissions, that you have to move from fossil fuel to renewables. Target is 2050, but that it's not going to happen. Why I say it's not going to happen? Because India already said that they cannot do it. The transition is not easy. Moving from fossil fuel to energy to renewables will take time. China said 2060, India said 2070, and US, I don't know what they are doing. Right now, US situation, they completely out of this Paris Climate Agreement. They're pushing fossil fuel energy quite heavily. So we have no idea whether that's going to happen. Then we have to sequester carbon dioxide from atmosphere, about 8 trillion ton, or at least half a trillion ton, to get to 350 parts per million, which is, we can say that by that time, if we can do that, about 350 parts per million, could be able to stabilize the weather, according to scientists. And this is going to take 30, 40, 50 years to do that or more. And we don't have that time. What will happen in those 50 years? How those children are going to study in the hot temperature? What will happen to Kolkata, Mumbai, Dhaka, Chennai in 50 years? They will be underwater. How many people would be climate refugees, have to leave their homes? Prediction is millions of people from the coastal region, and because of the areas where the temperature is very high. What will be our food production, agriculture? This is a severe situation that we are not paying attention to. Mitigation, meaning moving from fossil fuel to solar, wind, will take a long time. And even if we do that in 50 years, we are risking a huge amount of crisis, suffering for the people. So the point is, and I don't have the time to go over that, the point is that we do not have that time, decades to that we need to act quickly. How do we do that? And there are different ways we can solve this. Particularly, that's where we are talking about solar geoengineering, sunlight reflection methods, or SRM, that can quickly cool a local area or a region or possibly the whole world. And there are ways to do that. We need to think about how to do this thing. This is not a permanent solution. We need to continue the mitigation as well as the sequestration. We need to continue that. It's not a substitute, but we need an interim solution to prevent suffering for those vulnerable people. So that's why I'm making a case why we need climate intervention. It is controversial, by the way, but something that we need. So now I am moving on to a few cooling solutions, and there are more. Just I'll give you some examples here. Leslie is going to talk about some of them, and Brian von Herzen, he's going to talk about marine cloud brightening. So I'll just touch a little bit on that. This is something we did to slow the melting of Himalayan glaciers. As we said, and Leslie will elaborate on this particular topic, um, HCI, Bright Ice Initiative, and IIT Indore are working on preserving Himalayan glaciers or slowing down the melting of glaciers. So one of the reasons for causing this flooding as well as the water crisis. So, and this is one way we are doing it, and you can see here the spot where we brightened, put some materials and brightened that area and increased the reflection, and thereby slowed down the melting by huge amount. And Leslie, I'll not talk more about this. This is one of the things I want to talk about, how we can slow down the melting of Himalayan glaciers. It's one of the way. Other areas that local, these are all local albedo enhancement, meaning local increasing reflectivity, sunlight reflection, and thereby you're cooling that area. And this is another method. This is, as we said, most of our houses in India, Bangladesh, and South Asia in general do not have air conditioning. Schools, and this is Africa, we are referring the picture you see. And one way we can increase the reflectivity of the roof, for example, by putting aluminum foil, aluminum sheet. And that Mir is the company or organization, they are working on this, and they showed, and this is the, the science behind it, that right now when you get the light on your roof, it gets absorbed, the light gets absorbed, increases the temperature. And if we could reflect part of the light, that is sunlight that is coming on your roof, then you can have that inside cooler. The surface gets a little bit cooler. And what they have shown, the organism meat, by doing their way of putting aluminum sheet on top of the roof, you get about 7 degrees Celsius temperature difference, meaning cooling by 7 degrees Celsius inside. So this can be a big, change. It's not that expensive. It is quite cheap. Aluminum is very simple, easy way we can do those, and at a lower cost in India, Bangladesh, and South Asia. And it's also, you don't have to, using air conditioning, you are also right now putting lots of carbon dioxide. So having that, you can make some cooling, and then if you have even air conditioning, you do not need to run that kind of air conditioning. You can lower the load on air conditioning, use of air conditioning using the aluminum foil. There are many other problems. I'm trying to do that. This is something, another way to cool the planet. This is regional approach. You can cool certain areas by brightening the cloud. And our speaker, Dr. Brian von Herzen, is going to talk about that. So I'm not talking about this. So the last part is the stratospheric aerosol injection. So I got these slides from Professor Douglas McMartin of Cornell University. So think about the continuum. What we are trying to do is short-term, mid-term, and long-term solution. Short-term solution, when we are referring to the local albedo enhancement, that where you can use, brightening the roadways or buildings using brightening materials. It could be aluminum or white paint, for example, you can use. And that way you can make your, could be your city, your rooms, your houses, you can, schools, building cooler. Then the midterm solution could be that a city you want to cool, a region you want to cool, and that's what Brian is going to talk about that. We also talked about how to slow down the melting of glaciers and by increasing the albedo of the glacier surface. And Leslie is going to talk about. Now, all those things are we need to do at different phases, but if all else fails and we are not able to do this, there's a global approach we are having. And this comes from 1991. There was a Pinatubo volcanic eruption in the Philippines, 1991. And we saw that there's a huge amount, 20 million tons of carbon dioxide, 20 million tons of sulfur dioxide that got into the stratosphere. And because of that, we our average temperature went down by dropped by 0.5 degrees Celsius and stayed there about 1 to 2 years or 1 to 3 years. Now, with that experiment, one can think about that how about we can do this artificially ourselves? So putting out 10 to 12, 20 million tons of carbon dioxide in that particular level, we can lower the temperature. And this is something that are being well studied, and possibly we can do that. Now, this is very controversial again. We need to understand the impact, because when we do these things, we put it across the whole globe, this amount of sulfur dioxide, that the weather pattern can change, the rain pattern can change, and somewhere it could be a huge amount of rain, can be no rain, and we do not understand that very well. So we need to do more studies before we do the deployment.
नाश्ता खाया नाश्ता
Uh,
खाया
I'm sorry. I am almost getting. I think time-wise, I'm not. I'm almost getting there. So I will leave. There are a lot more work we need to do about this. It's a global, but the reason I brought it up, that we need to do research on this if we want to be part of the global negotiation. If this technology solution moves forward globally, and only in the global north is aware of this, have this solution and understanding, then we become very much dependent on the global north. It is important for us to do the capacity building, do the knowledge, increase the knowledge, so that we can negotiate and understand the impact. And if needed, we can do it ourselves. Finally, I am coming to what we are doing, HCI's doing in this space. So our role is research, field experience, and pilots. Um, First part, one thing we are doing is that how we can save the glacier preservation, particularly the Himalayan glaciers, and working with Bright Ice Initiative and in Indian Institute of Technology, how we can show that there are solutions that can slow the melting. Also, we want to see that which are the areas that need the rebrightening. so we can provide those a solution to the Himalayan countries as well as the United Nations so that they can do the more research and deploy it in the future if needed. So that's one thing. There are more field experiments and pilots are in the planning. That's something we have to do. Second part is that leadership, climate leadership awareness campaign. In that category, the goal is for people to understand the situation. So unless people understand the crisis we are in, it is very difficult for people to act with urgency. Working with the people around India and talking to some people in Bangladesh as well, the knowledge about the crisis is very limited from top to bottom in all areas. So we decided that if we do climate workshops, 12 climate workshops per year in the region, and create knowledge base, create capacity among the people, inform the people about the risk and what kind of solutions we do have. So it is a bottom level approach. On the top level, we are doing cooling summit involving the policymakers and the top level actors like business, philanthropy, academia all together have a shared understanding and a path forward how we can solve this problem. And in addition, we do the community-led reforestation effort. We do have mangrove plantation and other plantation as well. What you can do, and that's going to be the end of my last slide, that spread this knowledge. It's important that people know what crisis is. And unless people know, then and raise voices, the policymakers are not going to act on it. So it's important that people understand. So webinar, workshop, possibly create a climate clubs, HCI chapter, write op-eds if you can. Influence a national or international dialogue on climate change. And there are many cooling solutions that that you can come up with. Work on that, come up with, and perhaps you can do small scale experiments, field pilots on those cooling solutions as well. So with that note, I conclude my presentation. I'm giving back to Dr. Sarif. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Soumitra, for your excellent presentations. Mr. Rituraj, can you hear me? Mr. Rituraj, now I request Mr. Rituraj.
You are still mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Very good.
Okay. Sorry about that technology issues. It seems to crop up everywhere. So yeah, just to follow up with what Soumitra was presenting, let me go and try to bring on my presentation. Okay. Do let me know if it is visible.
Yes.
Can you see my screen? Okay, great. So, Soumitra has already kind of set the context about why we need to talk about climate intervention and research. And Just to follow up on his comment about the atom bombs that have been added into the atmosphere, this is just to put in terms of quantity, how much of carbon pollution we are adding to the atmosphere every 24 hours. And the consequent, we are saying 2025 is now confirmed as the third warmest year ever, despite the El Nino conditions that were prevailing. Otherwise, it would have been the most warm on record. So Somita has already talked about the unlivable planet, how many parts of the world will be unlivable in the future. But I think, from my personal point of view, I feel that the fact that the Eastern Himalaya region, Assam and northeast of India, are not in the map is, I think, is just a lack of data maybe, because last year the Northeast, which is known for its biodiversity, known as a pleasanter part of India, was actually reeling under a heat wave, which went up to 39 degrees Celsius, and with 98% humidity. In some places, it felt like between 50 to 54 degrees Celsius. So that was, I think, quite the edge. And as you can see, we do not have the Northeast in that map of those areas. So I think it is just a lack of data that we are seeing. So we all know in the figures, the Antarctic ice uh, mass decline has been speeding up, despite some of the headlines you're seeing that there was more ice in Antarctic in the last 1 year. And the consequent sea level rise that will happen, which is probably inevitable because of the warming locked in the atmosphere already, will affect cities like Kolkata and Dhaka and Mumbai more than the big cities of the world in the global north. So we must understand, and I find it always very, very easy to reach out to all stakeholders, students, administrators, politicians, by talking about health issues. We can talk about each of this. You can expand on them uh, to a entire presentation. But as a World Health Organization had said some years back, that the climate change is probably the biggest threat to global human health. It is also extinction and biodiversity crisis, and I work at the intersections of biodiversity and climate change. And The number of species that are disappearing from our planet right in front of our eyes is exponential. We know about megafauna, we know about some of the amphibians and all, but we don't have any idea about the insects, the pollinators that we have lost, and that is driving uh, a food crisis which will be upon us before we know it. So, this is the best of the slides from Mr. Al Gore that I use. It is huge. Everything is connected, and especially the world economy, number one threat is uh, carbon dioxide. India is among the top 10 countries, so is, I think, Bangladesh. So we know that the risks are there. We have very specific studies from the government of India, from ICIMOD, which talk about the threat to the Asian water towers, the third pole, as we call it, because the most populous countries who are not very friendly with each other are in this region. So the entire geopolitical stability, water wars is here. And this is not something new. Almost 10 years since this data-driven analysis was published, where the likely water wars could happen. And one of the areas is, of course, the Ganga-Brahmaputra Valley, which encompasses most of our region in India and Bangladesh. So it's been more than 10 years now since the Paris Agreement. So where have we reached? We have made a lot of progress, and we have more solar power. Definitely, we have more uh, exponential growth of capacity. We have more clean energy. The costs are going down. We have more, batteries available. Solar energy costs have declined, and we are moving in the right direction. it seems. We have more, number of electric cars on the road everywhere, and yet we are not there. And that's the reason we need to talk about climate interventions. The global climate report, which came out for last year very recently, talked about heat wave and heat waves, heat stress, the wet bulb temperature that Dr. Soumitra had explained. I think it is the unknown killer, and that is actually something that we need to address because our politicians are not addressing that, not giving the importance they should. And I think that is the silent threat for our region, especially. And entire India could see exponential growth in uh, deaths related to heat stress. And we are not even talking about the impact of heat stress on ecosystems, on crop loss, and all these interconnected things. As you have already said, 2025 was the third warmest on record despite El Nino conditions, and it was just just zero point zero 0.01 Celsius cooler than 2024, which is the warmest on record. And every month, except for February and December, was actually warmer than the corresponding year as well. So all this data we are getting everywhere, which which confirms the fact that despite having the Paris Agreement, despite all the countries seemingly working together, despite companies coming together to drive net zero or at least make the commitments, we don't know how much actual execution is there. But we are seeing a lot of ecosystems being degraded. We are seeing conditions that are going to be irreversible in a few decades. So the time frame for actually, achieving that 1.5 uh, envisioned in the Paris Agreement is almost gone. It's been 3 years continuously of 1.5 threshold that we have reached, and I think it is already causing a lot of disruption of ecosystems. We are seeing the Antarctic and the Arctic both are affected. We are seeing more wildfires. We are seeing more extreme weather events, including in our country, in South Asia. The water, the loss of snow cover has been talked about, and I'm just going to highlight some of the crazy reports that have come out just within this month, January 2026. The Himalayas, we are seeing no snowfall in many areas, and then a related report we are seeing we are entering a era of water bankruptcy. Uh, this report from UK says that it could trigger a nuclear war because of the decline of Himalayan rivers. And then finally, overshoot. The world is at the point of no return on climate. I think this particular slide is where I'll stop because I can hear some noise in the background as well, and I think this actually shows us that we need to take climate intervention very very seriously. We need our governments to endorse research. We need our universities to work with each other on research and innovation, and we need our climate activists in South Asia to embrace the idea that even for a short while, to buy time, we need to talk about climate intervention. I will end here, and I always like to end with this slide because sometimes many people say that we need to save the earth, but actually, it's the human species that we are trying to save. The planet will always be there, even after we are gone. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your excellent presentations. Now we're going to discuss about preserving Himalaya glacier, which is very important, and I request Dr. Leslie.
There. But I haven't opened up the PowerPoint yet. You want to do it or you want me to do it? Okay. Point share screen?
Yes.
Okay. I do not see The
Now
PowerPoint.
click on the PowerPoint.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for those wonderful presentations. Can everybody
Yes,
hear me?
No, we cannot see your presentation.
Oh, no. Okay. Okay. I've got our IT department here, but you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. Okay. This is a new Zoom type thing to us. So, okay. Sorry about that.
No
I can start with some comments while we wait for the slides to come up.
Yes.
And that is that, Shamitra did a wonderful job describing the various scales of interventions one might do. Is this showing up now?
No.
Phil? No. And so that's very important to know. I deliberately focus on, oh, this looks like maybe it's come up now.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I deliberately wanted to focus on something where we could do things in a small regional area with collaborations from people who actually knew the area well, in order to be sure that what we did was as safe as humanly possible. And we had a wonderful team that Shamitra helped introduce us to, a wonderful environmental impact assessment specialist and a wonderful glaciologist to work with us while we were in the area testing this out. And one of the key things that I think is useful here is to do something called surface albedo modification. Albedo is reflectivity. And it's to do this at the surface means that if you did find later on that there was some kind of negative impact that you hadn't known, even though you study it a lot before you decide what you're going to use as a material, you have a chance of taking it away, right? And not having any long-term damage. And that seems to be working very well as a thought and as a practice. So that's something that we really live by. So here it is. Imagine a world where glaciers keep giving life. And we've really had so much better conditions than perhaps we deserve in the way that we've been still polluting things, in that we had this beautiful bright white surface that was reflecting a lot of solar energy over a long, long time. And it looks like the party may be over now, that it's, we're really in the dire times. So glaciers are vanishing fast. And with them, the water supplies, as you've heard, of over 1 billion people is getting very threatened. Less ice means less reflection. And there we are, accelerating warming, flooding, and famine. And communities, it's really not fair. Communities that haven't contributed much to the pollution that is making this increase in a positive feedback loop. The more things melt, the faster they melt. These communities that it's not their fault are facing the greatest climate risks. So it's a big problem, and we're working our hardest to do the right things about it. And it's been inspiring work, and it looks like we have some really good actual test results, which is something that, as a lifelong engineer, I insist on, that we have really well-founded results. And so what we've been doing most recently is applying a safe clay-based brightening material to glacial surfaces by hand. We will probably get to the slide that shows my son and I just doing this by hand with manual seed spreaders in Iceland as a pretest. And it reflects more sunlight, slows melting. It's one of our colleagues from Minnesota who came up with this particular idea of this particular material. And it's really a lovely thing. I love the collaborations we have. Simple tools, local teams, real impact is quite important to me. The next things that I'm thinking about here are things that are cheaper and lighter. And that is something that I'm digging into now, but I don't have all the results yet. So we'll see whether that helps. So this is basically another way to summarize what I've just said. And then our mission really is to preserve glacial ice through respectful, localized, low-impact strategies. Why glacial ice? Well, you've heard all kinds of excellent reasons why. It really matters to communities. And it's really a way to keep things so that they don't spread worldwide if there were some problem. And so it's about the safest way one could start something like this. And our EIA specialist, environmental impact assessment specialist, determined that there was no negative impacts to the water as we, as she continued to monitor that, which was the news we hoped for. And we've had, we doubled the reflectivity in the Himalayan test site. This was actually the brightest material, the most improved reflectivity that we've seen of any materials we've tried so far. And that local partnerships and successful trials, as run-ups from Iceland and Minnesota really was very helpful too. So those are some of the metrics that we can look at. What it looks like when you spread this. This is an older material. We started out with a more granular material, and this was on a Minnesota pond, and it showed just how much brighter things were there than than before. You get dark ice typically, or in the Himalayas now, as one of those slides we just saw indicated, there's no snow or ice at all in some areas now, which is not great. So this brightening could be even more important than we think. And then, here's the mom and son spreading of the materials here. It really is a simple process, and this is the brightening that you can see afterwards. And let's see, we had another one that's really, this shows the test site up at the highest site that was treated, and we have all kinds of really good scientific equipment there to make sure that we understand just how much reflectivity we're getting. This is really, the best material, the best instrumentation that we know of. And it's sitting there in the Himalayas for another year or two. We hope it lasts that long. So that's a really lovely thing to do, to actually see what we have. And our team, I'm proud of our team. But basically the idea of what we do is really to try to make a difference with the simplest techniques, with the best collaborative teams, and with the best instrumentation, so that we know what the truth of it really is. And it's looking very good so far. I think, especially in the interest of time, it might be time to wrap up unless people have questions for me. But the other thing is, sorry, almost forgot a very important point. We've just had 2 climate modeling papers come out, and this is really important as well, because our climate modelers get to take the results that we get, in the field from these actual experiments, and then they get to model what would happen if we were to treat, theoretically, if we were to treat some other area, and which would be the most important areas to treat. And a couple recent papers have come out now from this climate modeling that show that we could have a profound impact in the right direction, even on sea ice, potentially, by treating the right smallish areas of the sea ice. And that's a very important piece of news. So, thinking about doing things in a local way, where there's control, where you can see what your results are going to be rather quickly, is just it seems like a very safe and lowest risk possible way you could possibly do this kind of work. Now, any questions? Do we have time for questions? And thank you for your attention.
Sorry, may I add to what Leslie said? It's very important result. I want to emphasize the meaning to me. In fact, that is the result that got me interested in this experiment. The moral results that Mr. Barna and a few other scientists did for the sea ice was that for the Arctic preservation, you do not need to put these reflective materials all the areas, a little portion of it, a fraction of it, you can preserve it. So that tells me a huge thing. There's a 1 to 2% of Arctic areas. If you brighten that, it can preserve the Arctic over time. And when I heard that, and I said, oh, I don't have to brighten, or we don't have to brighten the whole Himalayan glacier, all of them. The certain areas we can call the strategic key areas, we can, and that can preserve Himalayan glaciers. And that is a key part of this thing. We have not identified those areas because it requires the modeling and do not have the funding to do that. But our hope is that the result we obtained from the research doing the modeling work in the sea for the sea ice would translate to the Himalayan glaciers as well.
Yeah.
So
this is exactly right. Thank you. Yeah.
And with the research that happened in the past, marry this together would be a powerful solution to preserve Himalayan glaciers. So that's wanted to add.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very good to emphasize. And it is an exciting result.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. This is excellent presentation. And now I request Brian for his presentations. He do focus on marine cloud brightening, rapid coolings, and so on. It will be very helpful for Bangladesh, specifically for Bay of Bengal and this region.
Thank you, Dr. Sharif. It's a pleasure being here today. And I'm going to talk with you today about rebrightening our ocean planet Earth. But first, I'd like to share my background with you, and that is these lovely marine clouds that are marine stratocumulus clouds have a pivotal role to play in rebrightening ocean planet Earth. It turns out nature has a great way of cooling off the planet, and it's with clouds and ice. And the more clouds we have, the more sunlight gets reflected. As you know, a cloudy day may be 10 degrees, 15 degrees Celsius cooler than a sunny day. And so these shadowy regions are really key because these are the shadows that keep our planet cool. And so that's the opportunity. There's some challenges because a warmer world tends to be less cloudy. And with that, I'll share my slides with you and we can dive into the story, if you will. Let's see, it's right here. All right, this work is being done in conjunction with the Healthy Climate Initiative, WCEP, of course, and our volunteer effort, rebrighten.org, which is a small and growing effort to really look at local and regional marine cloud rebrightening that can actually help communities from the coastline to hundreds of kilometers inland. So this is really a key opportunity. The first thing we have to observe is that climate change and the warming is actually making Earth dimmer. Amazingly, the Earth has dimmed over 0.5% in just the last 20 years. And this can be measured both with the NASA Sirius satellite, but also the Big Bear Solar Observatory, shown on the right, that actually measures the reflection of the Earth glow of the Earth on the dark side of the moon. And so by measuring the amount of sunlight that is reflecting off the moon, we get a very good picture of how bright the Earth is. And sadly, over the last 20 years, these numbers have dropped significantly. And we have a dimmer and darker planet than we did just 20 years ago. And this has been confirmed 2 ways now. And it has very much to do with these clouds. The marine clouds that you can see here in the lower area are very bright. And of course, they will reflect some of the sunlight back into space. But when there are fewer marine clouds, then we have a dark ocean and dark land that will absorb a lot more sunlight. And so we have the opportunity to restore the brightness of these marine clouds and the extent and the duration of these marine clouds to their pre-industrial level. And that presents a unique opportunity using nature-based and nature-inspired approaches. This dimming, of course, has profound effects from the North Pole, where we have less sea ice, the glaciers, where Dr. Leslie has very accurately depicted the challenges and the opportunities, and of course, the lower latitude oceans as well. And the challenge is, with fewer clouds in the air, what could we do? So we have fewer clouds, less ice, and in fact, this is showing a picture of the decrease in ice from the 1970s to the 2020s. And astonishingly, we've lost much of our ice cap, if not most of our ice cap, as you can see here. And of course, in the summertime, the North Pole gets more sunlight on a clear day than the equator. So it has a huge effect on the amount of heat. It all comes down to the difference between two large numbers, and that is the amount of visible sunlight that reaches the Earth minus the amount of emitted infrared light that goes back into space. That's the red curve. The visible light is the yellow curve because the sun's yellow. And as you can see, over the last decade, something very interesting has happened, and that is we're getting more and more sunlight and less emission relative to the emission. I mean, the emitted sunlight, or the emitted infrared light, is increasing as well, but that's because we're on a warmer planet. And the challenge is this gap of more than 1 watt per square meter that's grown in just the last 20 years, the last 2 decades. And the challenge is, how can we manage this effectively by rebrightening? Another way of looking at this is the difference, which is now, by some estimates, over 2 watts per meter. And the challenge is to reflect more sunlight into space, keep our ocean cool enough. And it turns out there's a very interesting trial that was done, and that is, it turns out the shipping lanes that go across the oceans have a profound effect on the aerosols that help to form marine clouds. And so, ironically, as the planet's been getting warmer, the ships have been compensating to some extent with all those aerosols. Now, those aerosols are not particularly healthy for life on the planet, but as you can see, over the last 10 years, there's been a decrease of aerosols starting in 2015, but going through 2023, where we've lost about 80% of these shipping aerosols. And you can see the red regions are the decreases and the percent of sulfate that's occurred from shipping, especially in the North Pacific and the North Atlantic Oceans. And the result has been, on these shipping lanes, far more cooling now that these sulfates have been curtailed. And the result is the sea surface temperatures have gone to unprecedented levels. And it's due to this loss of aerosols, loss of cloud condensation nuclei. And in fact, here's an animation of each year and how warm the oceans and climate have been getting. And as you can see, in recent decades, it's getting warmer and warmer and warmer, passing 1 degree Celsius and reaching 1.5 degrees Celsius. And so this warming trend is correlating very strongly with the challenges. And at the same time, we're losing a lot of our natural infrastructure, and that includes kelp forests and seaweed forests near shore, which have now diminished dramatically. And now we can barely even see the kelp forests that existed in the 1800s. And so the challenge is to regenerate life in the ocean, consider nature-based approaches to address these marine clouds that, like it or not, in the last century, many ships have helped to foster with their aerosols. Could we identify natural aerosols that could do the same thing and keep our coastlines cool hundreds of kilometers inland? And just as an example of those aerosol emissions, you have to go, this 2023 cut was here. And after World War II, of course, and even before, we had a gradual increase in fossil fuels, a gradual increase in sulfate emissions until we reached a peak after the year 2000. But by 2023, 2015 to 2023 was the phase out. It dropped to pre-World War II levels. So that's how much we're winding back the clock. And the challenge is that we've underestimated what a big impact this has. As you can see, as soon as we cut the aerosols, the temperatures skyrocket, particularly in the ocean. And that affects the amount of rainfall, the amount of moisture, and it ironically, that warmer environment also means fewer clouds. This has had a big effect as far as the North Sea. The 6 months after the curtailment, there was a plus 5 degrees Celsius sea surface temperature anomaly. And furthermore, in places like this is the Florida Keys, they reached a temperature in the ocean of 101 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm not sure I'm going to play the audio, but this incredibly warm water actually went above body temperature. Now imagine if you had a fever of 101 degrees Fahrenheit. It might not feel very good for a few hours or a few days. But now imagine you had that fever for weeks on end. That's how the corals feel. And that's why the corals, in this case, didn't bleach. They simply died when they reached 101 Fahrenheit. And when they reached off Key Largo, 101 Fahrenheit in Manatee Bay and elsewhere, the corals simply died. And we lost the first coral reef that I ever dove on. And that was the Sombrero Reef off Key Largo. So it was very sobering to see this. Of course, it also affects the storms. We've got more than 20 named typhoons off the Philippines each year, and the number of those is increasing. And so we have to really manage those temperatures, and it can be done by improving the cloud cover over the oceans as well as over land. And actually, if we have better cloud cover with cooler ocean temperatures, we have less flooding. This is some examples from Europe. Spain before and after had enormous flooding. And of course, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan are severe examples of the flooding situation. We've talked about the survival risk to the tropics and the regions that would be uninhabitable. We have the threat of the first chapter of the Ministry for the Future, and that is the possibility of wet bulb temperatures becoming so high that millions of people in the tropics could die. And yet at the same time, a failure of the monsoon in regions across India and Bangladesh could actually result in unprecedented temperatures in April, May, June, before the monsoon arrives. And this is an example just from a few years ago, where a late arrival of the monsoon can have terrible effects on the temperatures and wet bulb temperatures across the Indian Ocean. In the Bay of Bengal and the Arabian Sea, there are many risks here associated with these high temperatures if there's an adequate cloud cover, and the ocean temperatures are a critical parameter for this. So we ask, how can we re-brighten our planet? We can generate marine clouds using nature, and we've explored this at rebrighten.org. There's, for one thing, sea spray, which actually produces aerosols and salt particles that are very good at producing marine clouds. And by regenerating enough submicron sea spray, we can have a profound effect on the number of aerosols, the number of cloud condensation nuclei, and the extent, brightness, and duration of these marine stratocumulus clouds. The late, great Stephen Salter proposed building catamarans that would actually do this as a dedicated task. But I would also call upon the existing fleet of more than 100,000 merchant ships that could have a submicron sea spray generator on the back of them. And then every port in India and across the Indo-Pacific could actually utilize the merchant ships could actually help to re-brighten their ship tracks using nature-inspired and nature-based aerosols that are healthy. Similarly, we could actually use the rings of seaweed that we're developing at the Climate Foundation. Marine permaculture grows algae, and what we learned is that algae produces biogenic aerosols that also have a pivotal role in rebrightening marine clouds. Terrestrial forests as well. If you ever go to a pine forest, you can smell that sweet pine smell is in fact terpenes, and those terpenes are very active in producing submicron cloud condensation nuclei that helps form clouds over the mountains. Similarly, the kelp forests and other seaweed forests that we have help to actually produce marine aerosols, as shown in this schematic, and a convergence of wind brings these cloud condensation nuclei up to the bottom of the cloud layer and actually helps to brighten and extend the duration of these marine clouds that can keep our coastlines cool to hundreds of kilometers inland. There's a rich history of restoring the cloud cover. It goes back half a century and even more, since 1936. And so there's a strong opportunity for us to use everything from simple sea salt to the submicron sea spray to the biogenic aerosols. And of course, we stand on the shoulders of giants, including the late great Stephen Salter, Latham, and many others. And so it's through this learning that I think we can find nature-inspired and nature-based approaches. They include localized marine cloud rebrightening with kelp forest, biogenic cloud condensation nuclei, with submicron sea spray that can be deployed on ships and deployed on coastlines and use marine solar power. And we could do trial testing in the tropical regions because, after all, our locations across the tropics are on the front lines of climate disruption. And so we should be leading the way towards solutions that are transparent, adopted by communities, and we hope to enlist communities to help lead the way in showing a direction towards a healthy climate. Now, Prime Minister Modi has actually mandated an increase in seaweed cultivation in India from 30,000 tons in 2024 to over 1 million tons per year in the coming years. And so there's a great opportunity to scale the seaweed production, which can produce food. It can produce agricultural amendments that reduce carbon emissions, less fossil fuel fertilizers, and it can actually help with climate repair by producing biogenic aerosols. So we get a 3-for-1 benefit, all 3 legs of the climate triad. And thus I would encourage and look forward to developing these offshore seaweed mariculture systems across the Indo-Pacific Oceans. And we invite your community to submit a proposal to rebrighten.org to actually help to lead the way in pioneering healthy climate initiatives that we have today in the Philippines, and we hope to bring across the Indo-Pacific in the years ahead. And with that, please check us out at rebrighten.org. I look forward to your questions and comments. And I must say, please join us to help rebrighten Ocean Planet Earth. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, Dr. Brand, for your excellent presentations. And this is the important solutions. Even you know that Bangladesh has 171 million people. Do you have any idea how many people know about your technologies, or Leslie or Dr. Soumitra? Any idea?
So this is what we are trying to do. We go around the country to let people know about this. These are the solutions exist, and these are the people who are working.
Exactly.
So you can directly contact. And on top of that, what we are doing a summit. In summit, we are inviting the business actors, the philanthropists, the policymakers to take the first step, to engage in research and trial of this kind of technology. For example, Brian's this presentation that Brian did, marine cloud brightening. Now we are talking about floods, extreme weather in Bangladesh. Now we are talking about dams and barrages to manage this. But see, the source of the problem is that higher temperature. The thing is that we need to cool it. Once we cool this thing, then the flooding will be less, will be rain, will be the less storms and cyclones. And how would you do that? Marine cloud brightening is one solution that you have. Leslie is working on the trial on glacier melting. That also contributes to your flood and water. We need to solve this problem. We have the tools, and we need some way to expand this, make it bigger, so that it can be deployed.
Thank you for your explanation. So that is the things like I think last year's I was in Silicon Valley and in Stanford. I met with Leslie, and I discussed with Dr. Soumitra and Brian and their friends. And at that time, I understand that how a country like Bangladesh get positive support or engage with these things because our politicians, our policymakers, our corporations, they are struggling with what is the solution they need, how they can overcome from the situation. So, first thing first, Bangladesh has 171 million people, and from there we have 57% youth. Even the recent political issues, you can find that many youth people, they come to the politics and we have some political tensions. On the other hand, India also a very good ally for Bangladesh, and if we need to solve these challenging things for climate change, definitely we need a regional peace, and that's why I identify this Himalayas. What you have your solutions, then this Ganga. There is a huge impact with this river through Podda in Bangladesh, and definitely Bay of Bengal. I think I also discussed many things with Dr. Brand regarding this Bay of Bengal. So here, whole world 1/10 populations leave this region. So capacity building is something where we are contributing, and World Talent Economic Forum contributing. And definitely HCI is our partner, World Talent Economic Forum partner. We just started our symposium. Hopefully we can do more summit, workshop, training for policymakers. Actually, our country is not bottom-up approach. Our country more like top, from the top they decide and then it's implemented. So what we observing that this warming of this region, it's real. It is quickly becoming severe. There are scientists, they already explained it will cause mass disruptions and suffering, and it's closely create a pandemic, migration, job loss, and so on. So what I identify through my experience from global north and global south, that we need for climate change response, we need three things. Number one, resilience. I think through this technology and innovation we can get it. Then adaptations, we need to adapt. That is the most important thing. Our mindset is a major challenge. That's why I like Dr. Soumitra approach, because he can understand global north and global south, and this kind of adaptation is very important for our political leaders and our policymakers. And then mitigations. So what is the action needed? Definitely politics is very important issues, because these things is geopolitical issues. When we discuss about river, permacultures, Himalayas, then educations, universities. Already we share all of the local universities and the government agency. Social values, science and technology. I think Dr. Soumitra and all of his colleagues, Brian and Leslie, has science and innovation, which is very important, and media. So that's why we are heavily promoting our symposium with all of the Western medias and the South Asians and the Asia Pacific media. And what is the obstacle? I'm just trying to identify the real things. It's not we what happened basically from all of the top guys come to Dhaka, they go for high qualities conference and summit, then nothing happened with my grassroots level communities, nothing. So what we need, we have lack of awareness, we have outright denials, we have lack of interest. Most important thing is that misinformation and greenwashing. Even today's sessions, I share with our many politicians, diplomats, Bangladesh armies, and so on, because misinformation and greenwashing is one of the major issues we can solve. And media has to play a major role for this misinformations and disinformations. Then inability to dedicate on constructive actions. We need constructive action. So this scientist team, what Dr. Soumitra has, I want to welcome you in Bangladesh. We can go for constructive teamwork, and we can deploy your innovations with local universities and the government agencies. So we have different kind of organizations in our countries. Through some of will become organizational leaders and so on. So that's why I targeted for next 5 years, definitely with North America, with HCI, with our ally from Japan, because Japan heavily investing in Bangladesh for climate initiative. We have university like California Institute of Management or St. Edward universities. Also IIT is a very important university. Also in our ecosystem from Bangladesh, Dhaka University, Daffodil University, Chittagong Engineering University, IUBAT, different universities, they are working with us. But we are go for a pilot projects, developing 1,000 leaders next five years. So that's why today's discussion is very, very important. So we identified that we do not need all of the climate scientists. Yes, Brian is very valuable, Leslie is valuable, but we need some sort of capable people in our community who understand technology, who is comfort with the climate technologies, and so on. So for that issues, we design not only like we are just sitting in the Western world and giving the solution. No, we engage with grassroots level people, not only this internet. We go to Rajbari, we go to Chittagong, we visited Dhaka, we go to Kumilla, Lukhipu, Noakhali, Sylhet, and Chittagong, and we find that we need to improve the systems thinking, because climate is bound to other problems. We need to improve from our youth leader. You know, we have 57% youth, and they are coming to the politics, and even they run ministries like ICT ministries and many ministries. So critical thinking to cut through the misinformation and greenwashing is very important. Most important things is that always we are observing our climate ministries. They come to media and they say we do not get any kind of help from Western world. So some point I said that when I go for persuasion and negotiation, I get at least a lot of knowledge and support, like today's symposium from Western world. Why you can do that? So I believe through this culture, what we are developing with HCI and World Talent Economic Forum, with this Western scientists and innovator, we can improve the negotiation and persuasions. That is most important factor, country like Bangladesh. And we need to understand when we develop this public-private partnerships or climate initiative. Dr. Muhammad Yunus is a Nobel laureate. He always introduced 3-0, like net zero, unemployed, zero poor. So technology assessment is a very important factors, and urban planning. I think Brian already mentioned and discussing how he can help to build up this ecosystem. So already today's symposium, specifically Bangladesh, I share with 200 corporations, NGO, government agency, universities, foundation, school, college, all of the top bodies. So we need more partner like corporations, NGO, and government agency who can take action, not only pen and paper, who can work with our team, who can help to implement these projects of HCI has. This is very important. So we need to motivate our community. We need to improve our culture. We have to go for persuasion and so on. This is the way we are developing this technology and idea joint create change. We can go for more innovations in our metropolitan area or our coastal area, and this way we can build a local community with global network. So I always say that individually this global north cannot do anything, or global south cannot do anything. We need community developments. How we doing our symposiums, like Rituraj from India, doctors Shomitra and all of other speakers from USA and Australia. This is the way we can build up community, we can build up our network, and we can take actions. And by this way, I think we can improve our ecosystem in an effective way. Long times I'm doing research, and a lot of fellows from around the world in World Talent Economic Forum, like UNWTO Secretary Generals, Guterman family, Swiss Impact Investment, Pacific Rim Business Council, Port TV, or many famous people, India Institute of Technologies. Uh, they work with World Talent Economic Forum. So I believe here is the beauty. I write a book on climate Silk Route, what I say Silk Route 3.0, and I said this Himalaya, then this Ganga, then this Podda, and Bay of Bengal. This is the future of new economic dimensions, and it will be $1 trillion economy because 600 million people live in this community. So we need our politicians who can play a role in favor of climate change. We need NGO, we need corporation, universities who can educate peoples, who can take actions. So from my small initiative, as much as possible, I try to engage with the global community, with this global network. Definitely, HCI has very innovative solutions. They have more capacity. So I believe first thing first, if we can focus on this capacity building, then this research and innovations, and finally, if we can develop better policy for Bangladesh, for India, then it will be very effective for us. And definitely regional peace is very important. I request Dr. Shomitra with his HCI, and definitely our World Talent Economic Forum, regional peace is ultimately the way of overcoming from this solution. This is very easy to sell it, but this is very difficult to create a better community, positive community. So we need regional peace, we need climate actions, and by this way, we can improve these things. And there are a lot of talent in in South Asia. I see in the grassroots level, lot of talent. Only problem, we do not have ecosystem, technologies, mentorship, what you can do. You have your extraordinary knowledge and expertise. I believe when global north and global south can work together, we can build better world, and that is called Silk Route 3.0. Hopefully through this process we can build $1 trillion economy. But climate initiative is most important, global peace and regional peace is very important. Thank you for your contributions, and thank you for all of your support and everything. Our initiative is very basic level, but hopefully through this process we can move forward. Leslie, you have any question?
Yeah, I'd like to add something. There's a U.S. organization called Climate Action Now, who really is coalescing and making things simpler for people to, for instance, reach our congresspeople, our governors, our political leaders. And I'm wondering if an international collaboration, of you tapping into that network, I think they'd be delighted for you to do that. And I haven't asked their leader, but I suspect he's pretty open borders, I think. And I'm wondering if that's one way to start getting things to grow in the ways that you're talking about, because that really is an essential thing. So.
Yeah, this is the things I identify. That's why I developed this talent economy. We have a lot of people, but we need proper guidelines. That's why I say, Dr. Soumitra, do not waste your time in USA. Better come to Bangladesh. You need it in Bangladesh. You need in India, because this kind of talent and experienced people is rare in our community. So also, I want to invite you all in our countries, and hopefully we can organize summit and real action. And this is the starting. We have some questions. If you have time, you can respond from, we have some fellows from our World Talent Economic Forum. Dr. Soumitra, we can continue these sessions. I think still we have 20 minutes or something.
So, yes, I think I have quite a few comments here. So, one thing we can do here, there are two projects proposal we have, we can create. And with your help, Sharif, and your connections, that a marine cloud brightening pilot, we can create that. Now, what we need here is that a endorsement from your minister, climate minister, or ministry level. Okay. Why endorsement? If we can get the endorsement from your top level people, then we can create the proposal and get the philanthropic funding from here. From the funding from the north, we can get that. But what we need is the cooperation from top leadership from here. And that, if you can do that, we do have a proposal with Brian and HCI. We can work together and form a team of marine and cloud brightening in Bangladesh, because you have the coastal plain. There are plenty of branches different ways, and I'm very excited to see if that those sea routes that the ships that land that area, if we can use those to create brightening the cloud, that will be a great way to cool that coastal area. And Brian is saying that 100 miles inland, and it can solve some of the problem that you're experiencing. That's number one. And on that line, today I had a chat with Riken Patel. Riken Patel has a partner for Climate Hub. They are working with this marine cloud brightening. Brian, maybe you may be interested to know that on the using ships. I don't know which area in Africa or Australia for marine cloud brightening. So that's something, and also we can see the results already. I don't know what the results in I think the Cambridge University is doing a marine cloud brightening in Australia, right? They are doing, and we can use that result as well for the coral reefs.
Yes, there's been research on using sea spray for coral reefs, and particularly research done on the Great Barrier Reef. It's the initial results can be promising, and I think there's opportunity to do a lot more work in this area, and the research is sorely needed, because as the planet warms, we're going to have more and more demand for local and regional climate repair, and the pressure will be on the mayors of municipalities to actually address the problem. And if we haven't done the research ahead of time, we won't know the side effects, we won't know everything else. So before it becomes a political mandate to do something about the climate, let's research it. And thus we need the research funding to understand what's sustainable, what are the best practices, and how can we move forward as a people.
And as we can form a team with you, Sarif, and the whole idea is that getting the top level leadership, the sponsorship and the endorsement, not asking for the funding. We can get the funding if we get the endorsement. So let us talk offline on this and see how we can move this forward. I don't see that we can solve the problem in this call. Just to, I'm just teeing it up. And on the other thing is that, other project, we have the glacier project. See if that, one of the ways we are spending a lot of money on these bridges and dams and other things, but a small amount of that money, if we can do to solve the root cause of the problem, and that is the glacial melt, and that we can do a project, a small portion of it, tiny fraction of the money that is being used. Um, that we can do that testing. We already started doing that. We need to do a little bit more than that. So we can then do the two areas, and then if you're interested in doing the kelp and uh, seaweed, that's another area also. In India, I think that that's a huge opportunity, and we can talk, Brian, how we can expand.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. This is excellent discussions, and I think through this symposium, our government agency and corporation and academia, they can take some sort of actions. We have elections this coming February 12th. Hopefully, after that, all of the government initiative will be more effective and efficient, and we can go for research and we can go for planning and executing. So thank you for joining today's sessions. And if you have any closing remarks, Dr. Soumitra, then Dr. Leslie, then Brian, and then Rituraj, you can share the closing remarks for today. Dr. Soumitra.
Thank you, Dr. Sarip. Thank you, Brian, Leslie, and Rituraj. It has been a great pleasure to have you, on this forum and this symposium. And we look forward to collaborating with you in the future project. And as a next step, I suggest that Sir Sharif to have after the election, when done, as we planned before, a longer uh, sort of workshop where you can bring the political leaders, the key people, decision makers on this, forum online, that we can present some of the project ideas as the next step, so to make it go forward. So want to see this thing just not stop here, but to take the first seed, we show the seed that can bloom in many, many trees in the future. And the next step, let us make it get your leadership in one place so that we can present some of the ideas that can be useful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Leslie, what's your closing remarks for today?
Oh, my closing remarks. I'm
Yeah.
so thankful for this symposium, this convening to understand how important this is to, well, everybody here, and that helps empower me to empower my work further. So that's very useful. The idea of pouring a bit of funding into the kind of work we do, that's actually pretty essential. And the U.S. is in very strange economic times for anything related to climate. So it's if there is some source that could be tapped a little bit, that would probably be incredibly helpful. But not to end, this hopeful thing on just money. It's just such a delight to talk with all of you and to hear your perspectives again, and see how far the work has gone. Brian, if there were a way to join in on the marine cloud brightening, I do have that kind of idea, ideas on that kind of thing from past work. So yeah, there might be something we could collaborate on.
Yeah, we'd welcome that. And I think your point is well taken. We should insist that our governments help lead the way on research and development for rebrightening ocean planet Earth. But we should not necessarily expect it, because historically, governments and other large institutions have not been leaders in this area. And thus we must look to our scrappy nonprofits and startups and the angels, really, to do the leading research that is going to show the way towards regenerating healthy climate. And thus it's up to us. If not us, who? If not now, when?
Hey, that's what I hunt my students with too.
Good.
It gets in your head, you can't escape it.
That's right. I love that.
Exactly.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Rituraj. Yeah, Mr. Rituraj, what's your closing?
First of all, thanks to World Talent Economy Forum for hosting this, and it's always a pleasure to listen to the wonderful presentations of Leslie, Brian, and Sumitra. I'd just like to add as a closing remark that having access to climate intervention research should be a matter of climate justice for indigenous people and local communities at the front lines, of course, with the free, prior informed consent that is required. And it should be made accessible, first of all, to the people at the front lines, if at all we can talk about deployment at certain point of time, because saving human lives, saving the ecosystems should be prioritized. So that is my closing remark. Thank you very much once again for hosting us.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for
All right.
thank you, everyone, for joining today's session. I request everyone, those who are observing today's show, please share our content with the government agency, corporation, and academia. Thank you. Bye-bye, and take care.
Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.